That's pretty neat.
So we started this when we didn't have anything. We could not afford for any the expensive posters and everything, and we didn't have that the SEA posters and everything. So what we did, I created this one. I made this one, and I made this one as well.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So this is the main logo that we have it right now, and there's other pictures. Now we have changed it. We used to call it signage. Mm-hmm. But I do not use it right now. It's right over there. But I'm going to definitely use it later in the future.
Yeah, that's fun.
And then later on when we were making, a good business, because at that point of time, we didn't have any schools. And there were very least numbers of people who could understand, taking the barista training would be very much helpful. It's just that now it has become much more fashion.
Yeah.
Where, they know that taking this training, they can get a job in the international market. But we started just to make people understand about the Nepali coffee culture and, how to brew coffee, a proper coffee. That's what we wanted to do. But now it's been 7 years. Things are taking a different way.
It's great. That would be a good label.
Now it's pretty old now. I'm pretty much scared because we have a little bit of dust over here. But I cannot, hit it with anything. It'll fall off. I have to be very much careful. So I just let it go. Just need to make sure. Sometimes I want to vacuum it up. That's it. Nothing else. How many countries did you go? Did you do any processing before?
No. This was the first time.
Have you had fun?
Yes. I mean, I've been doing watching the processing at Lake Holly for a while. So, but otherwise, just Colombia.
Wow.
So,
how many times did you visit to Colombia?
3. So, in guerrilla-held territory.
Oh yeah, I know.
So, yeah, and their processing is much more, not archaic, but just more. What's the word? It's not as refined.
I see.
And the machinery, they've made it.
Wow.
So they didn't get it from India or China or anything. They've fabricated it from waste metal and stuff like that.
Oh, that's interesting.
So yeah. So some of at least in the guerrilla areas, in the coffee triangle area in Colombia, then they have everything modern. So
it's good. Okay, I think you've got red, got blue. Okay. Cool. We're good to go then? All right, Stanley, I rate it. Okay, good.
Thanks,
No problem. Okay. So yeah, welcome, Stanley. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. It's a treat to be here with you.
I'm glad. I've always wanted to have you over here because we have had, a few meetings where we were talking about Nepali coffee and your experience as well. But before starting, let me explain about the podcast. We usually talk about the culture that we have it, and specifically now talking about Nepali coffee culture. But since you have a very good experience about the Nepali coffee and also the culture over here as well, because you have been here, I think, since 90s?
80s.
80s, wow.
Yeah, late 80s.
Why don't you introduce yourself, and how you came to Nepal and everything?
I first came to Nepal to climb.
Uh-huh.
And then I took a trek after the climb, and it was not a good experience. I went back to my home at that time, which was in Ketchum, Idaho, a ski resort community, and we had sponsored a Sherpa from the Khumbu region. Each summer, he would go there and make money to send back to his family here. And he said, "I know of someone who has a good trekking agency."
Wow.
And that's how I got to know Nima and Tenzing and their father Mingma, responsible for Lake Holly. And they had Last Frontiers Trekking at that time. And that was even before Tenzing had coffee in mind. So, yeah, it was...
That was like 80s?
Yeah, 80s, yeah. And I would come over each year, and then things just developed.
Now you're
So-
almost half Nepali now.
Yeah, and I was always roasting coffee before I came over here, and I was always surprised. I always wondered why there wasn't more, at least in Tamil, why you didn't see more recognition of Nepali coffee being grown in the country, because it had the right latitude, and I knew that there was some being grown here, but you didn't ever hear anything about Nepali coffee. So it took a while before that took off. And so
Since when did you start, roasting coffee?
So when I was little, growing up, 7, 8 years old, a neighbor of ours was a third generation German coffee roaster builder. And he had actually grown coffee. His family had coffee land in Central America. And I first became used to the smell of coffee roasting, and was given the job of cleaning up beans and things like that. And so he started teaching me about his methods of roasting, which he roasted with infrared and with fluid bed. And so that was my first exposure to it. And I don't think I really drank coffee for a long time, but he taught me to taste the beans, the roasted beans. And so, but I don't think there were many kids my age that knew what a green coffee bean was, or anyone for that matter. And then he ended up opening up a coffee shop he had already had it opened like they are now. It was, even though he was from Germany, he had a vision of people going to a place where they could sit down and get different coffee drinks long before Starbucks or anything like that. So.
Wow. So, do you remember the first time, you started roasting the coffee professionally? Did you work for any kind of cafeteria just at the home?
Nope.
No.
At home. He gave me, people would send him roasters to test, and he would give them to me because he wasn't interested in testing someone's little roaster. And someone had made, and I think the person's still in business, he had made one not out of a popcorn popper, air popcorn popper, but he had improved on that. And I think it was called, I'm sure it was called the Fresh Roast.
Wow.
And so he gave that to me, and I started roasting coffee, and it probably only, the canister was,
190?
Yeah, at the most. And but the coffee was the best I'd ever tasted. It was, and I think it was even better than the big Diedrich roasters because they were such high volume. And so I really, when I did that, I started sharing it, because that's, to me, one of the best things with coffee is seeing other people appreciate it, enjoy it. And then, it kind of went from there, because I could put that in a duffel bag and go places with it as long as you didn't set off smoke alarms. But the coffee was really, really good. And then that's when I learned about over roasting. I think you have to make mistakes to learn. And then I took that into my classroom. So I taught school for 26 years, little children, 6, 7, 8, 9-year-olds. And I would teach them about, it wasn't part of the regular curriculum, but I would teach them about growing coffee plants, and we would grow them in the classroom and then roasting the beans. And I think teaching, I learned more as well. And that was pre-Google. You couldn't just go on and research something, so I had to ask people. And most people that sold coffee sold freeze-dried coffee, Folgers, things like that. No, not very many people were doing a real drip coffee or.
Did you do anything else in your professional life besides coffee? If you can, share with us.
That I can share with you. Yes, I had. So I taught school. And I also worked for the U.S. Forest Service as a wildland firefighter.
Yeah. I wanted to bring that up, actually.
And that was, my firefighting is where I was introduced. A lot of we're out on fires sometimes without, not close to any roads for 2 weeks at a time. And I noticed guys had little Nalgene plastic bottles of coffee syrup. And I said, where did you guys get that syrup? And they said, oh, it's toddy.
Wow.
And so that's where I learned about cold brew from those guys who just bought any coffee they could get and put a pound of it in and let it sit in cold water overnight and saved the syrup. And so that kind of re-inspired me. And then my firefighters, co-workers started wanting my coffee.
Wow.
And that spread from there as well. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So when we were talking about, the fluid roastery, the fluid roasting method,
Fluid bed.
could you explain about it? Because I do not believe that most of us have heard about it much.
So the fluid bed roasting, the fluid refers to a fluid, a steady amount of air that is lifting the beans up and lofting them around. So it's hot air that's heated with electricity, and it heats up, it blows hot air up and elevates the beans, so they're floating around, and it gives it an even roast. And so, like for instance, with mine, I have a temperature of the heated air that's coming in, and then a temperature of the beans, and so that's what we mean by fluid bed roasting. And it's all pretty visible, as opposed to a little window. You can see everything, and you can. So a large part of the roasting is keeping an eye on it as well as listening. It's pretty difficult for me to do a good job and have headphones on, and so. But yeah, the fluid bed basically lofts the bean in hot air, and so there are quite a few small fluid bed roasters. Most of them don't have any way for eliminating the exhaust except into the room. The other thing is that I think is instrumental is I cool my beans down in about between 60 and 90 seconds. Okay. They're cool, and then I bag them immediately. And for some reason, and I haven't really had a good explanation from the MIT Coffee Research Lab and the UC Davis Coffee Research Lab, people have asked me, other fluid bed roasters, they say, how come we can bag our fluid bed roasted beans so quickly, but we can't do that with our large gas exhaust roasters?
Yeah.
It needs to
release the gas
for 24 hours, and
exactly.
I haven't heard a good explanation of that yet. So I'm not. You might know. You probably will know, but I don't know, because I can bag them immediately, and it doesn't. Even though I have one-way valves on my bags, it doesn't
inflate.
Even if I put it in a Ziploc bag, it won't. It will a little bit, but not too much.
Maybe that might be one of the reasons, because as we have had, the experience about the inflations of the coffee packers, because most of the roasting machine that we have, it's not the fluid one, actually. It's totally different one. So maybe that is I'm not a roaster though, but yeah, this is the specific, few ideas that I can, you can see.
You're a roaster critiquer, and I think that's as important as roasting. And so for those of you that are listening that don't know, if you ever get a chance to listen, I wish I understood Nepali better, because to listen to him speak with a roaster, I can only imagine what your conversations are, because
I'm glad. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I wanna ask you, Stanley. I was calculating early in the morning because I knew that you were coming over here. It's almost like you were in the coffee field. You are in the coffee field for like more than 50 years now.
Yeah, I'm old. So
no, I didn't mean to ask
that what you're trying to say?
No, I was just about to ask you, how do you take the all the changes that we see right now? From 80s to 20s that we are past. A lot of changes has been there in the coffee industry, not only in one place, not only in US, but all over the world.
It's I was just thinking the other day, I was in the late 80s, I went over to New Zealand, and in Auckland there was a coffee shop who was he wasn't a roaster, but he was serving espresso drinks, and he was able to explain the different beans and everything. And I thought I hadn't seen anything outside of my roaster mentor. I hadn't ever seen that any place in the world. And so, and then of course in the US, it's exploded, but I don't even understand the growth in the world. It's just exploded. And I think one of the things that's interesting is that in Nepal, and I talked about this at the conference last week or the week before, just coming back from Colombia, where they're the second or third largest coffee bean producer in the world. It's unbelievable how much they produce. And I've been helping out guerrilla-held territory coffee bean farmers who are wonderful. And they are very open to the fact that they have no understanding of coffee. They know how to grow it. They don't even understand separating beans and the good ones from the bad ones or anything. They just are farmers and they grow it, and it all gets purchased. And so there's no specialty coffee industry in Colombia, very little. There are coffee shops with espresso machines, but they don't know anything more than that. Contrast that with Nepal, that has, how many people are you putting through your barista course?
Yeah, per month?
Yeah.
Above 100?
Yeah, 100. And all of them could be employable if they really want a job. Because there's such a demand. And so you've got Nepal, where there's this excitement with the new coffee baristas who have, having gone through just a tiny bit of your course, have a lot of knowledge, a lot more than just making a flat white. There's a whole lot more to it. But there's a huge demand, and but there's not enough coffee grown within Nepal to meet that demand, and there's not a easy way yet to import coffee. And so I don't understand, back to your original question, I don't really understand the huge growth that we've seen. I've always found it amazing when there would be all of the Central American countries were lost their coffee crops because of rust and things like that. And yet the price for a cup of coffee was still the same. It didn't really change anything at the end, but you knew that the farmers weren't making any money. Yeah. So one of the parts of that answer is the inequity of the money. I know I'm covering a lot of areas, but the growth of coffee is just, people don't understand. I think a lot of people don't understand how big of a market it is throughout the world. There's, and how much research is being done about it. In every country, there's a lot of research being done. There's more and more research being found out about its health benefits without abusing it. And so I see it to a degree as being very invulnerable. It's an industry that has just continues to move forward no matter what's happened, whether it's recession, whether it's insects or disease, whether it's pandemics. My best year was during the pandemic. Yeah. And so I don't quite understand. And when I've had people, these coffee experts, especially a group from Stanford, the lady in charge of that group contacted me because she said, everything you're doing contradicts and what coffee's doing contradicts what proper business models indicate should happen, which is a good thing. Yeah. And so as I mentioned in the conference the other day, it's super exciting for young people getting started in coffee because you're a stone's throw away from where it's being grown. The growing it sustains farmers. They may not realize it yet because it takes a few years to get going, but it sustains farmers. I'm seeing those beans coming in every day to the offices to be roasted from little farmers that might only have 20 plants. So it's a viable industry. It's growing, and unfortunately, it doesn't happen instantly. But I don't really understand this huge growth in coffee, except that when I do a lot of fundraisers, So I'll sell people the coffee so that I make my margin, and then they can double the price. It's still a good deal, and they can make money as well. And people say, well, how do we know it's going to work? And I said, well, because if it's a fundraiser for a school, for instance, I say, well, people drink coffee. That's all you have to say. And they're like, oh, yeah, I guess people will buy the coffee. And they always do. Yeah. And good coffee is starting to be something that is important to people. They're starting to recognize it. So all of these little groups of experts here in Nepal, I really think that that Nepal is ahead of the game as far as its training, because I know in the U.S., I know a lot of people who are baristas, and they've mainly learned their barista skills through on-the-job training. They haven't gone to a school, and they don't know anything beyond their machines. And there are more and more machines. I thought it was just Starbucks, but now I know that there are a lot of other machines where you just push a button, and it does it all for you. And so this is Nepal is the Wild West as far as coffee goes. Who would have thought? So, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Yeah. When you just mentioned about the price related, in coffee, I was asking. We were talking about the same thing before the podcast, before we were on the air as well. What do you think? Because it's not only for Nepali market, but let's talk about the international market as well, where the global financial crisis, which is basically, I don't know if we can talk about it right now, that happened in 2009. But when we are talking about coffee price related, do you think it's going to affect, to the farmers? Definitely it's going to affect, but the impact that it's going to put on, do you have any ideas? Because I know you bring the coffee, specifically talking about the Colombian market. What do you think about it?
Well, I think that it's real easy to go into a Starbucks or a coffee shop in the U.S. and pay $5 for an Americano or a drip coffee cup, 12-ounce cup. And a half pound of my coffee beans, for instance, cost $8, and that's 30 cups of coffee or so. And having done the math with a group in Colombia for those farmers there that are hanging on, because now they're growing coffee instead of cocoa leaves, and having a drug lord pay them off, and so now we were calculating that they were making less than, it varied, but it was less than 50 cents a day for an entire family is working. And so where is that money lost? And so, it's getting rid of the middleman is difficult and complicated, but that's another thing that makes me proud about Nepal, is that there's a concerted effort to get a fair pay back to the farmers. And so that's one of the reasons it's more expensive. And Tenzing tells me that he's people want a deal on the coffee, and he's saying, why don't you raise the price of what you're selling to your customers, because I'm paying farmers. And so I don't think people understand, and that's one of the big topics that's a huge topic in SCA and a lot of things online, is that money's not filtering down, and it's quickly becoming known to people as how big of a commodity coffee is, and how much it sustains these entire populations and everything. I've been working with a man in Colombia who has started a tour business where he takes people up into the closed areas of La Sierra. It's urbancoffeetours.com, and above Medellin, Colombia. So it's still currently held by guerrilla groups, and you can't get in except with him. And it's completely safe, but they are growing coffee to sustain themselves, and avocados. And one of the things that hasn't changed with them, his business is doing really well, and it's all part of the community. But one thing that hasn't changed is the fact that their coffee it's keeping them alive, but it's not making. When they asked me what does a cup of Colombia coffee cost in the U.S., I was ashamed to tell them, because they couldn't fathom what that would.
Do you think this brings to a concern where the farmers, not only the farmers, let's say people in the business of the coffee, they need to be pretty much, they should literate themselves, when it comes to financial things, financial situations. Because, according to, the kind of situation that we have it right now, the price rate and everything, it's going to be really hard for the people to manage the money as well, The supply chain, it's going to get affected as well. And there would be a lot of, department, or let's say a lot of places it's going to affect as well when it comes to finance and everything.
Yeah, I'm not sure how they're going to be able to do it. It's, I was reading recently how in Ethiopia, where I get my beans in the Yirgacheffe region, they had beans that sat too long out in the sun because they didn't have enough money to purchase the fuel to get them to market and things like that. And so, how do they continue? I don't know. And yet I can still go and buy 60 kilogram bags of Yirgacheffe beans for $3 a pound. So it's that whole economy is complicated, and the importer exporters that I use are very selective in that they only they don't use fair trade. They are a middleman, but they work hard to pay the farmers a living wage and establish good relationships. So they have people that visit the farms regularly, and they give me a little bit of a discount because I donate a large part of the proceeds. So it's going to take everyone working together.
Yeah.
But that's where the big corporations make it tough. And so it's.
I think we're gonna get through it. Definitely, we're gonna come up with something. I don't know, but let's see how it goes. Let's get back to your roasting. Let's talk about your origins. How many origins do you roast?
I roast right now. I have South America, Colombian, and then Central. I have Nicaraguan, Guatemalan, and then Mexican. And it varies for me. And then I have Indonesian, Sumatra, and I have African, Ethiopian Yirgacheffe and Sidamo, which I brought some of that over. And the reason I have so many is because it's a 2-hour car drive for me to pick up. In my Golf, I don't even need to take a truck. In my Volkswagen diesel Golf, which is like a Polo here, I can carry 4 60 kilogram bags. And I roast about just under 6 tons a year, metric tons a year. So I can drive up and get that real easily. And, I can be back before lunchtime, sort of a thing. And there's a warehouse that has several 100,000 bags of beans in it, and trucks coming in and out 24/7. It's one of the major warehouses for coffee beans in the U.S. There are 8 of them that are regionally located. So for me, it's just real easy to get them. So however, I'm now going to scale back, and I'm just going to have 3 different origins and then some blends.
Wow.
Just because it's hard to keep track sometimes of.
Have you been roasting Nepali beans before?
I have. Well, I never get enough, and I always feel they're always offered when I'm here if I want to take some with me, but I hate to give them to people because then they're going to want more, and I won't have it. So, yeah. So,
the Nepali coffee is on demand.
Yeah, they are.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes, I wanted to ask what kind of processing you basically use. Is it washed or the natural processed coffees that you
washed
roast?
And mostly washed.
Mostly washed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And as we've talked about previously, in the U.S., excuse me, not everyone, but for the most part, people want their coffee roasted darker. That wouldn't be super popular with experts like you and people like that. And so, and also a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people have their coffee with an additive, as I call it. And so, whether it's milk-based or soy or nut-based or oat-based now. And one of the things that it's taught me is it doesn't matter what I like or what is preferred by the experts. It's what your customers like.
Yeah.
So
what's your target, Stanley? Is it B2B or B2C? Business to customer, or directly you deal with the, supermarket, or just that us?
I've had it in 3 regional supermarkets in the Portland area and 1 in the Bay Area. The one in the Bay Area, I've scaled back, so I'm only selling to the employees. 2 of them in the Portland area we had an agreement on the prices, and they raised the prices without telling me. And the reason we had an agreement is because, one, they need to pay me more because that's money that I donate. And so, and they say we like your coffee for its taste and also because we like the fact that you donate the money. But they raised the prices and didn't tell me. So I just pulled it out of all the coffee shops. The other thing is they weren't rotating it. I usually get it to people the day after it's been roasted. And so I was finding bags that were like 4 months old because they weren't rotating it properly. And so it was, and if they put them out, they'd sell. But so I just decided that although it shouldn't matter to me, I can sell enough with just a 1-person operation, and I can ship everything that needs to be shipped. It's pretty easy now with online shipping programs, that I'm just doing beans to customer. And then my next stage is going to be to educate. I'm going to, actually it's one of the things I've been doing this month is breaking down I'm going to include a newsletter because I want people to understand the process from the farmer to their cup.
Wow.
I think that'll make a difference.
Yeah, that's going to give a lot of, ideas on where the coffees are coming from,
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome. That's pretty nice. But you said mostly, the coffee that you roast is a medium?
No, it's mostly dark.
Medium dark?
Yeah, not even medium. It's
so
dark.
You did not roast the light beans? Light roasted?
Not much. I do have a few people that want it light.
Okay.
And
So there are very less numbers of people who basically prefer city roast.
Yeah, people want it. They want an espresso roast, a dark roast. And so it does, the Ethiopian beans especially and the Guatemalans, Huehue Tenango, it took me a while to admit it, but they do have a special flavor when they're roasted, technically too dark. I can stand it. And it also, with the fluid bed, there's no bitterness.
Yeah.
So
you mentioned that before as well, but you see, most of the time, even in Nepal, I believe you have tasted a lot of beans in different coffee shops as well. Even we also practice medium to medium dark, which is like full city roasted beans. But the kind of bitterness and the harshness that we get in the coffee, it's pretty much different than what you might be roasting, right?
Completely.
Would you like to give any suggestions on that? How we can, or maybe any reasons that this is happening?
I don't know if it's the processing. I've had beans that roasted at Like Colombia, and then I've had the same ones raw, I think 2 years ago. And so I was able to roast some of the identical beans that had already been roasted. Anyway, it was like a completely different bean. And so, I think that's the beauty of all of it. And I just think that this morning I was in a coffee shop and the person had little taster cups, like little tiny paper water cups, and he had a line there, and he had somebody walking out with a tray of samples, and I thought, that's brilliant. And I said, "Oh, are you doing samples now?" And he was just like, "No, someone, they're attached to a restaurant. Someone ordered and didn't pick it up." And so he said, "I thought I'd sample it." And so, and they were different kinds of drinks. And it was funny because as I sat there, I noticed that everyone who tasted that, tourists, were like, "Oh, this is good. What's that? I'll have that." So he was able to, right there in line, sell drinks. I don't know if they were more expensive or different or what, and I thought, and so, I think that it gets back to finding out what your customer base likes. And that's one of the brilliant things that I hate to admit that Starbucks has done. And for all the Starbucks bashing I do, I wouldn't probably be doing what I'm doing if it weren't for Starbucks. But Starbucks regularly, it's on a schedule. They go around in their stores and they give out samples. And I think that, and that to me is becoming aware of what your customers like. So
do you think that the industry that we are in right now, the Nepali coffee, I'm gonna say, we know that what the customer likes, because most of the people over here, they are pretty much into medium to medium dark roasted beans.
I think you do. I think that's right. I think that if you threw something different at them, it would be interesting to see. I don't think force them into it, but have samples.
I've done that. I have a cafe in Bhaktapur.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've mentioned it or not. Once I tried to use a very light roasted, very high quality coffee from Sindhupalchuk. And they've had this coffee, and they had the espresso, the regular customers actually, and they mentioned that after drinking that coffee, they wanted to puke.
Really?
Yeah. It was like, okay, Dan, serve them the medium dark beans, and they were like, okay, this is back to the same roasting profile. Yeah. So most of the people over here, they believe that if we are serving any kind of, let's say, a different profile, different taste profile beans, it's more likely to stale, or maybe it's not good quality beans, but they do not understand the high quality where the coffee or maybe espresso tastes with more acidic flavors in it, with more sweetness in it.
See, this is why people need to take your course, taste or develop a course for tasting, because there's so much to learn about it. Yeah. And so, at the tasting conference or symposium a couple weeks ago, I was listening to the conversations that were in English that I could understand, and I could just tell from body language that people were discussing the different flavors that they were talking, and you could see some people that were just like, no, I don't like that, and others that did like something, and I think that's just part of it. It's this versus being locked into, in the U.S., you're given something and you don't have any other options for the most part, and you're paying big bucks. And so, it's, and don't even get me started on what people are paying. I've worked with people, with other teachers, where they would bring in the drinks for, it was their turn to pick up drinks at Starbucks, and they would have a carton that had 4 drinks in it, and it was $31, for those 4 drinks, $31 US. And so most of them had a lot of sugar in it and things like that. But it's there's just no way of knowing. And I think it's really fun. One year at SCA, I haven't ever had my own, and I couldn't sustain it, but I haven't ever had my own booth there, but I've shared. And I had a taste test with decafs, and I do a Swiss water pressed Colombian decaf, and it's really good. And but it was funny to have it mixed in. I had 4 of them. There was just one decaf. People had to identify the decaf, and some, 2 SCA judges couldn't get it, and so I think there's just a lot, because it was roasted dark, but I think there's it's just so wide open.
Yeah, because people think that decaf might taste totally different, but it's not actually. When it's like either I've tasted decaf, but not the light on the city roast or less than that. But with like medium full city, yeah, I've tasted it. It almost tastes similar to what the regular caffeinated beverages.
Yeah.
Like, wow. Do you remember when was the first time you tasted coffee in Nepal? Just in case. I know it's going to be very long back, but then still in case.
Wow, you're saying I'm old again?
No.
I think, well, the first time I ever had it was that I really had a real one would have been at the offices, at Like Colombia offices.
Uh-huh.
I don't think everything else, it was debatable what it was. And so...
Because I wanted to ask about the growth of the Nepali coffee, because since you have been here for very, the culture, understanding the culture, and now you're, going to a lot of cafeteria and drinking a lot of coffees. So I just wanted to, squeeze in to the, what do you think about the culture that we have, the coffee culture, and the quality of the coffee that we are serving right now?
It's super high. There's... one of the most common questions I get asked about Portland, even though that's not where I grew up or anything, but I've been there for a little while since I was there to take care of my parents. And they always ask me, how come there's so many cool coffee shops in Portland, but so much mediocre coffee? And that's true. There's no creativity in the roasting. And here, it's... Like I said, it's the wild, wild west. There's just a lot of really high quality coffee beans. I enjoy the coffee, drinking it a lot more when I know it's come from, this farmer that's got 20 plants on his farm, and they've processed this small batch. That's amazing to me. And so that makes me enjoy it even more. But for me to be excited about it doesn't mean as much to people. They have to get out and see. I think if they get out into other countries, they'll be disappointed in where it is in the other countries and excited about where it is in Nepal. And I've been in countries where they roasted on an open flame in a metal pan, and it was not the best coffee, but the group that I was having it with were special. So there's a lot more involved when you know the background of the beans. But yeah, I think that here in Nepal, it's it's so important to prepare it properly. Again, back to what you're training, and so I think that that's pretty unique about it. It's the other thing that we didn't touch on is essentially what you're doing is you're training people to have jobs any place in the world. If they can get out of here with the visa, there's plenty of work for them.
But also when you mentioned that before, that there are other opportunities that we have in Nepal. It's just that we over here are not understanding it properly, or we might see a very big opportunity on the international market. So we have been giving a lot of ideas on how as people who are involved in this industry can earn not maybe much, but at least something that they can get out of this coffee.
I have my coffee. Yeah, that's one of my popular topics. Is I have my Coffee Saves Lives T-shirt, and that's actually now is being printed up mainly on nice T-shirts, $30 a piece, not including shipping, and he can't keep them in stock, and that's because he feels so strongly that he's a gym owner, a CrossFit gym owner. He feels so strongly that purchasing the right coffee saves lives of the people that grow it and the communities, and also that the caffeine helps athletes. And so, excuse me. And so, I think, as I walk along in Tamil and I see thousands of coffee mugs with, I love Nepal and things like that on them. I think now that, I'm a sucker for a cool mug, and a good T-shirt. I think there's a lot that can be done with the side markets too.
Yeah.
The little coffee shop that I went to this morning, or that I go to when I'm in Tamil, I had brought them what you set your cup on. I can't think of the word. The
cup.
So you don't leave a spot on the table.
I forgot the name.
Yeah.
What do you call it? I understand that the mat that
yeah.
the cup.
So I had one that has my coaster. Thank you. Yeah. That had my brand on it, Fresh Roast, and I don't even have a website because I don't want to maintain one, but I have my email address on it, and I said to them, you guys should do this, and the paper place 3 stores down sells thick things like that. You could hire someone to cut circles and sell that, and so I asked him today, aren't you doing coasters still? And he goes, no, we're out. Wow. And he said, and we're not cutting them anymore. We have someone that makes them. Wow. And I was just like, oh, great. And I go, I haven't seen them anyplace else in Nepal. And he goes, yeah, I know. We sell 4 of them for 250 rupees. And I'm just like,
makes sense.
And it probably costs 5 rupees to make them. And so, yeah, they've got that going. And then, of course, that may not benefit the workers there, but that's just another opportunity. Mm-hmm. And so I see people, it's I think that pretty quickly hopefully I'll start to see, with these gatherings that you had, hopefully we'll start to see some, there was one business that was represented there, the bags. Mm-hmm. Hopefully there'll start to be some breakout groups, sort of like a mini SCA, mm-hmm. so that there can be networking done, like someone that might offer fundraising ideas in schools. Mm-hmm. How to join up and maybe with someone who can help with business practices, different things like that, because that's where I see Nepal is right now. It's just starting. All those ideas can happen, and so
I think we have got a lot of when we talk about the privileges,
mm-hmm.
We have it. It's just there's something. Maybe the support that I see we might be lacking. Yes, we do have people who are pretty much experienced on coffee, and they have been sharing their experience to new people and passing their ideas and wisdom to other people as well. But it's always like you want to get more and you want to achieve more as well. But also the other factor where we are not being able to recognize ourselves is that we are not being able to recognize ourselves on the international market, mm-hmm. or see ourselves on the international market, because you see, as you mentioned, that you haven't had the idea about the Nepali coffee, and your friends maybe, I'm not sure, but there are other people who wanted to have these Nepali coffee, but yet again we cannot supply the coffee when it comes to demand part. So that's the sad part that we must say right now. So we can produce a very good quality, but it's just that when there is the right amount of supply, we are still lacking on that part.
Yeah, and I mean that's just, it's going to take time. And so in our last trip out to Lake Kali, in Langtang, we I see now how those 15,000 plants can be pruned to mm-hmm. increase productivity. So there's
there might be Nuakot.
Yeah. So there's gains to be mm-hmm. made, but I don't think that but it doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
And as Tenzing is doing, it takes educating the farmers, and then we were talking about how they don't like to, it's not natural for them to prune, because they think, oh no, I'm going to lose beans.
Yeah.
And it'll take a few years for them to see, oh, when I pruned that at that second, at that particular spot, we now have more growing as a result. Mm-hmm. And so it'll take a little while. And so I think that's where it is. I mean, it would, I think Tenzing needs to stay in Taplajung and not ever come back here, because he could probably, I'm sure he'll like to hear that, as will his wife. But yeah, it's going to take some more people with, some more energy. It's in time. Maybe not more people. Maybe there aren't more people, but it'll happen.
No, actually, when we talk about the farming sector, there are very less numbers of people in the farm, actually. When we talk about the farmers, either they are older, above 60, and there are very less numbers of young people right now. Comparatively, yes, you can see a lot of the young people coming back to Nepal, or let's say people where they are staying in their village. They think coffee can be a very good opportunity for the people, because since we are growing and the culture is growing, and people see that the farming can be one of the opportunity, or also the processing can be one of the opportunity to earn money and build up the financial situation or status as well. So we can see a lot of young people coming back to the place, and they've started farming and plantations and everything. But again, it's not easy, because it's just not about having the land, or
it's farming.
Yeah, so it's not easy, because I believe is that there is that gap where every point of time when people pass the knowledge from farmers to farmers, because you have been working with 3 generations, roasters as well. So it's all about the passing the knowledge. So when you have that gap, between, it's going to be very much hard, because farming needs the science as well. But, there are other ways of, people have been farming for a very long period of time. And since we are an agriculture country, they have been doing these things for a very long period of time. So there is that gap where people need to understand the soil as well. Yeah,
the new permaculture concept is not something that they've been doing for generations. So that's going to...
So that is also one of the reasons where I must mention that, it's not easy when we say that, okay, I'm going to go back to farm and start planting the coffee cherries, or coffee plants. That's not so easy.
No, I mean, in best case scenario, you've got a 3-year gap before you're producing anything that's worth getting to the roaster. And that doesn't even talk about all the processing. So yeah, it's not like growing lentils.
So I wanted to ask Stanley, when you roast the let's get back to roasting. When we were roasting the wash process coffee and natural process coffee, is there any specific things that we need to take care of, that you can give us suggestions to us?
I can't. I really try to roast my natural processed beans lighter. And so, but yeah, as far as I don't have a special profile for them, and so I keep it the same essentially, with just slightly lower temperature and lower duration.
How come you're selling so much of coffees? Because you're not a producer, bigger. As you mentioned before, you're not a very big company, but 600 metric tons a year is like,
six.
6?
Yeah, not 600.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's
a very big amount of coffee, if I have to compare it with our, situations over here.
So my biggest sales come from schools. And so what I initially did was, I went to a Montessori school, and a friend of mine was the headmistress, principal of it, and we sold, it was a pretty simple formula. I sold bags, half-pound bags that I sell, and so 2 half-pound bags make 16 ounces, whereas the stores all sell 12 ounces, which is a coffee pound. But I sold in half-pound bags so that they would stay fresher longer. And we had a contest at the school, and the kids designed a label, and we chose 6 labels, and I had those stick-on labels at the time, and I had those created, and which wasn't free, but I said to them, you'll be able to pay for it, don't worry. And I gave them their first batch of beans, and we had a a parent-teacher organization meeting one night, and I served coffee, and we took orders, and everyone that bought coffee knew that 50% of the proceeds were going to the school, and the principal had a brilliant idea. She actually showed how much money was going to each classroom too, so it kind of challenged the parents. So that is something that generates about, and you'll have to convert it into metric, but to about 30 pounds a week. And normally schools raise money by selling candy bars that they don't have any affiliation with. You know, it comes from another part of the country. They're big chocolate bars that aren't that good, or toys, junky toys, and they raise money from that. The children don't have to do any sales, so they're not out in a neighborhood or doing something. Normally what would happen was the parents would buy all the candy bars just to get it over with, and they would just write a check. With the coffee, people want the coffee, and so they're buying the coffee, and for me it's real easy because I just get it to. I had to scale back on the schools and churches because it got too busy. Churches every Sunday, I would take their coffee to them, and then the schools once a week, every other week, so twice a month, someone would come and pick it up, and so I didn't even have to ship. And so, you know, I would sometimes do 50 pounds of beans. Oh no, like twice a week. Yeah, and so it was amazing how fast it went. And then that led to other people wanting to do it, and now I have some customers in Europe, in Switzerland, in Austria, in Germany, and in Italy. I'm not selling to restaurants. I'm not selling to stores, just individuals and nonprofits. And I'm trying to keep it so it's just me, and so I'm trying to keep it a one-person.
Oh, I see. So what if people want to get access to your coffees? Either it's a supermarket or...
Nope. No? They just send me an email message or text, and then I send it to them.
Okay.
Yeah, I had my website, and I didn't sell any coffee from it, and so why pay for it? And
are you on social media?
Barely. Yeah. I'm afraid to, because...
we know that Keith, yeah, remember? The guy from Australia.
Yes, Keith, yeah. Yep. And so I'm afraid to get on social media because I think it'll start, there's a point to where I'll have to locate to some place that I'll have, higher rent, and so it's just, this is manageable right now.
Makes sense.
So, and I went through the numbers where if I got much larger and I had to hire an employee or something, then I'm paying an employee's tax and things like that. So,
so you don't roast Robusta beans?
No, I never have. Although, as we talked about before, I just ordered my first 60 kg bag of Robusta. And so,
are you? Have you ever been researching on Robusta beans before?
Never.
No? Because I wanted to ask about in the growth of the Robusta beans that we have in the international market as well. Talking about Colombia as well, the Vietnam, and also Ghana. These countries are producing huge numbers of Robusta as well.
Robusta is huge in Colombia. Freeze dried, and and they're proud. People don't understand, don't even know. But yeah.
Because there are some good Robusta beans that has been producing, recently, and there are other people, who have been talking about those good Robusta beans and talking about the quality has been increased. And as you can see, people have been blending a lot of Robusta beans as well. I wonder, later on, this can be one of the challenging factor when it comes to Arabica, because since everybody's, you see that the market is growing, the Robusta beans market is growing. And people literally want to blend it together or, at least try it out, the Robusta beans as well. And the amount of coffee being produced in Vietnam, Colombia as well, and then also have been, apparently Ghana as well.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Well, when Keith, who's in Australia, if you're listening, his attention span is really short, so he might have already turned it off. Keith brought up the fact that they're finding that Robusta plants are doing better in changing climates, climate change, and lower elevations, and so it's a more vulnerable of a coffee bean. And for people that don't know, Robusta has long been considered not to be a better bean.
Yeah.
And that was one of those things where, I've had 2 cups of Robusta, and I don't think I could really tell the difference. You would be able to, just because you're the coffee tasting god, but you're one of them. And so, but I enjoyed it, and I was. I really, I was already biased against it before it came to my mouth. I was just like, I'm not going to like this, and I did like it, and so I think that it needs to be looked at, because I'm ashamed to tell you how much I paid per pound. So it was under $2 a pound, and so it was like $1.80 a pound for Robusta beans, and so and they're the highest grade.
Wow.
And so we'll see what happens. But again, I think that's just one of those things where no one has considered it. It's always just been the major freeze-dried bean. I mean, there's miles of it being grown and machine harvested in Colombia, and it's another avenue to try, and I'm excited for it, so we'll see.
The first time I've ever had Robusta, I didn't like it, to be very honest. But on 2022, we have had one friend from India. He's basically Nimadai's friend. So he bought one of his I think Robusta, right? Robusta and Liberica from his farm. We tasted it. We did an event, you were in meet and greet sessions. We did the same kind of event as well. And I was so surprised with the coffee, actually.
Really?
Yeah. That was unlike what we have been testing Robusta and what we have in our mind. And we were really amazed. And, we were asking, how can a Robusta be?
I know. And we're really not basing it on anything except preconceived notions. So that's what I'm excited about. And it's, apparently it's a much more, I'm not an expert at all on this, but apparently it's much more disease resistant.
Yes. So
that's something. I mean, I'm sure we'll start to genetically modify it and mess it up.
Exactly.
But
maybe.
Yeah.
And also it's not so hard to produce it as well.
Yeah.
The production rate is, compared to Arabica plants, it's way too high, and it's pretty easy as well. So there is one of these, and I've been always wondering if this is the case, and countries like Colombia, one of the maximum coffee growing countries, if they started producing Robusta, it's going to be pretty much challenging for the Arabica varietals as well.
Yeah, and one farm in particular that's was actually just in the news recently, because there is a little bit of fighting taking place between them and government forces above Medellin, but they have some Robusta. They didn't know they had Robusta, and they have some Robusta plants there, and they've been mixing it in with their Arabica without knowing. And and they're not, they're not claiming they claim that they are not experts about coffee, so they're completely innocent about it. And I actually have some of that mix that I'm going to roast. I'm kind of excited about it. But yeah, I think that, whatever it takes, I hope it doesn't. I hope that both beans can survive together. So we'll see what happens.
Me too. Let's see how it's going to go, because there are a lot of things that's going on in the coffee industry.
You might be the Robusta king as well as the Arabica king.
No, it's not going to be that. I'm not sure. But yeah, I would love to taste it. I would love to see how this coffee takes place. And also, I'm pretty much wondering, because if this is one of the things that's, growing, and the amount, the weight is growing and increasing and getting the popularity, I'm wondering what's going to happen if it's going to enter Nepal, because it's a different thing. And we have had some, because right now the coffee that we are growing right now, it's in very high elevation. I've seen the places almost like reef. You've seen that, right?
I've walked it. Yeah.
How's the experience?
Well, at Lake Holly, it's I like it, and I'm hoping that there's going to be a house built there soon. Plans are in the works actually, and I would live there. We're getting monkeys there though now, and so that's a little bit of a concern if they develop a taste for coffee. But I was going to mention that I was in a coffee shop in Seattle that is Himalayan Java, I believe is, and they had Robusta beans. They had some green beans in a container there, and they were Robusta. And I asked the person, I said, "Oh, wow, you guys have Robusta beans?" He goes, "No, these are all Arabica." Well, he didn't know, and that's okay. And again, that's something that going through a real course would help distinguish or help teach a person.
Java from Nepal?
Yeah, it's a chain up there in the Seattle area, and so, but. People like it, and it's busy, and I'm guessing that their beans. Well, I'm sure their beans are not from Nepal, and I'm sure they're from India. I'm assuming. I know they're not from Nepal, so it's in the U.S. already, and I don't think anyone really knows. So, but I think it just adds more diversity to the coffee world. Who knows? So I'm already thinking of a T-shirt that would have Robusta and Arabica on it. Yeah, I love Robusta. So
when you were talking about the climate change, do you have any thoughts on it?
Well, so for Lake Holly, it's funny because it seems to be getting, and talking with Keith, where there's a longer period of time. So normally the way coffee is harvested, for people that don't know, is it's not like oranges where they all ripen at the same time. They ripen over a period of weeks and months. Now it's months. It used to be weeks. And as I'm pretty sure it used to be, a solid month period. Yeah. And now, I think it's going on for twice that long in some areas. And
can I pour it for you?
Sure, thank you. And so I think that's going to be just playing a bigger and bigger role. I mean, Nepal's we just had rain last night. It was the first time in 6 months, essentially, that, the last couple days of a good rainfall. And so who knows? But it's going to play an unknown role in everything. And so over there at Lake Holly, there's really good water, and so it's nice. But so it's anyone's guess. Yeah. So things are changing, though, that's for sure.
Yeah, but hope for the best, you see.
Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised that there hasn't been more coffee growing in the U.S. There's a few people I know that are starting it, and they're growing it in the same place that they're growing grapes, which is low elevation, and they're growing Arabica. So I'm wondering what would happen if somebody stuck Robusta in there. So
I was wondering, Stanley, are you affiliated, or maybe are you working with SCA or CQI?
No, I haven't been.
Maybe in touch.
I've attended the conferences when they were in Portland, and and I entered several roasting competitions and things, and it was, I just found that it was starting to do, and I was taking care of my mom and things like that. I can keep up with the reading to a degree online, but it just takes a lot of time.
Because I've seen that packet of yours where I think ICT, International Coffee Trade. So I was just wondering could you talk about the packet? Is that from yours, or you just...
From ICT? Yeah, that's the importer-exporter that I use.
Oh, okay.
And they're the only ones that I'll use simply because they won't sell from a coffee farmer cooperative unless it's unless they're paying the workers a sustainable living wage, and unless and they've gone in and they just put the farmer first. And so
this one. So, is this your package?
No. I don't even know where that came from. Wow.
Maybe the coffee, the other one actually. So not this one. I think the other one.
But ICT. Where's that? What was the address on that? I didn't
see that. I thought.
Yeah.
I think Norgel bought it for you. No, that one. That's Keith. That's the Keith package actually. The other one. See.
Keith from Australia?
Yeah. Do you remember the packet that he gave it to me?
I do. Yeah.
The espresso blend.
Yeah.
It's right over there. Up.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, those aren't his beans. Those are mine that he put in his package. Did he tell you they were his?
No.
They're his. They're his.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Before signing off, Stanley, anything that you want to put the lights on? When it comes to anything.
I'm looking forward to seeing the first group of baristas that have a common goal, that start to put some ideas and combine resources together and produce some products, whether it's T-shirts, mugs, or whatever, or coasters. I remember the word coasters that time. That promote coffee, or something with it's something. It's just another avenue that they need to do, because you do need to sustain.
Yeah.
You need to make a living at things, and people would like those. And when I see what the tourists are buying in Tamil and what's selling, there's I've got quite a few friends that have little stores there that I've known for a long time, and I asked them what's selling. One friend she always keeps about 200 mugs, and I go, which ones are selling the best? And she shows me, and I'm just like, amazing, And so she's even got a Nepal coffee mug, which she doesn't know, anything, what it refers to or anything, and it sells. And so I just think that there's an opportunity for some people there with low or no cost startup funding that they could do to make a living.
We do have some of our friends who have recently started, the merchandise.
Okay.
The cups and T-shirts, but it's just that people see it as a business when it grows in a larger quantity, or maybe in a larger amount. But just in case, the way you mentioned, if it's something, they're not pretty much motivated to continue with the work, so they get back to the
stickers.
Yeah.
Stickers are huge, and 20 rupees for a sticker or something that's a neat design will work to help sustain the actual production of coffee. I think is a lot of fun, and this podcast is helping people too. I look forward to seeing more events like before. That was the networking that went on. I can't remember his name, with his wife, who was selling the bags.
EcoTag bags.
Which I use. Those are bags, for people that don't know, that basically are large. They hold 60 kilograms, and they preserve the freshness of the beans. And it turns out he went to the same school that I went to for undergraduate studies. Who would know? And so, but I think that the more of those things, and more than once a year, I think that was huge. I know it took a lot of work on your guys' part, but to me, it was mind blowing to just see the energy and how many people were crammed into there, and there wasn't even food promised. So that was
that coffee that we had.
Just
that coffee. Yeah, even in my experience as well, the bar that we had, if you remember, the longest bar that we have it. I've never seen that kind of crowd before.
Oh, really?
Yes. To be really honest, there were like a lot of events. They used to have small stalls where people used to come over and they used to ask for the coffees. But at that point of time, the people, it's just that it's almost like the pub, the alcoholic bar.
Yep.
It's kind of that. People holding their cups, they're asking for the coffees, they want more and more. And they were not tired. We had the cupping stations on the other side as well. It was pretty much
I think afterwards I was brainstorming a little bit. And I thought, what, if you had a cup that they could buy or something to people would have done it.
It's just that we wanted to introduce people
No,
about the
You did it right. You did it the perfect way, I think, for the first time, and maybe the second or third time too. It was really, really good. So it was, for me, it caught me off guard, the energy that I saw. So it was really, really good.
Crowd, eh?
No, not in a bad way. I was just really impressed.
Because you have been to a lot of big expos.
Yeah, but this was the energy level of everyone, and yeah, it was amazing, and everyone was on task.
Yeah.
So everyone was doing what they were supposed to, and your crew was running around emptying cups, and it was and it was good that people had to wait a little bit, and there were a few issues with lights and stuff, but who cares? No one left, and so so no, that was good. I think that it's just a sign of times to come. And there again, that's an opportunity for another venue. I mean, it's like the Marciandi Hotel. Mm. I was talking to one of the owners, and who, and I said, you guys should host a cupping here. And he goes, what is that? And which is okay. And someone else spoke up who had been to your training. And he, in Nepali, and he explained, he's just like, yeah, do we have enough room? And I'm like, yeah, there is. I mean, and that's just something. And so it's, it just, of course, it all sounds real easy right here, but I know that it takes a lot of work on your part or everyone's part to actually make it happen. And so, but yeah, that was good. I'm glad I was here for that. That was a lot of fun. It's been a crazy month.
I understand, because you have been living Nepalese life, right now.
I'm fine with that. Yeah, it's just all the other things like pediatric eye surgeries and sick dog puppies and things like that. But that's okay. That's
You're
life.
Doing fine.
Yeah,
you're doing fine.
Yeah,
because
I have no life anyway.
It's not like that. But I do not find it pretty much different than the other friends, the foreigner friends that we have it. Because since, like you mentioned, you know a lot of things about this place, this country as well. It's just not that it's your first time or second time coming over here.
Yeah.
That you might find very much fascinating. You do not get bored now. You know what to do. That's the best part. Because I've been asking to, Norge and Nimada as well. Stanley, if he stays over here, because last time we had Nimada's podcast, he was staying there for like 2 hours, 2.5 hours. And once you get bored, I'm like, nah, he's gonna get used to it.
They can just put me out in a corner and I can people watch and I'm fine. And so someone goes, that's why you're not married.
Okay.
Because you're happy just watching traffic go by. But yeah, it's there's always something going on and it's a lot of fun and up at the lodge there's so much work to be done so it's good.
But it's always great to talk to you, Stanley.
Yeah, you too. I'm honored to be in your presence.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming to our podcast.
Yep.
And giving your ideas and sharing your experience when it comes to coffee. Yeah,
and people are welcome to email me at stanleyfreshroast@gmail.com.
Sure, I'm gonna put that.
And ask if you want to run something by me. Do it. Let's do it. If I'm not here, doesn't matter. Just ask and network.
Nepalese people in the U.S. maybe they can do that as well.
They won't probably. No? Yeah, they're too busy trying to survive. But yeah, and none of them are into coffee that I've met.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, but yeah, no. I think particularly if someone wants to try to work on a school situation. I'll give them my ideas and what worked, and so you never know. You don't even have to have a farm or your own beans. Figure out who, find a supplier, and give it a try. Nothing to lose. They'll sell beans. Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Really glad I could be here.
Great talking to you.
Yeah, you too.
I hope you enjoy it.
Yep, I'm sure I will. I don't have a choice. Did I poke?
I'm just telling them I didn't, forcefully ask you to come over here.
No. And I'm not sure if I poked enough fun at Keith yet, but hopefully.
I think we're gonna clip the video and I'm gonna send it to Keith.
Yeah, make sure you do, because I don't. Yeah, you might have to print it out in pictures because I'm not sure if he can get the internet in Australia.
I'm going to send him a flat bite as well.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Stanley.
Thank you.
Great talking to you.
You too.